Okay, it being 6 o'clock, 6 p.m., I'm going to call this special meeting, of the Ojai Valley Sanitary District Board of Directors to order. Get a roll call.
Sure. Director Martinson?
Here.
Director Kintosh?
Here. Here. Here.
Director Reed?
Here.
Director Curtis?
Here.
And Chair Ulrich?
Here. Okay, actually, 7. We appeared not to need a director's request for a remote meeting. Okay, item number 2, we'll move on to item number 3, pledge of allegiance. Would you like to lead us? Ready, begin.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. One nation, under God, indivisible, and just for all.
Right. Do you have any
Flag there.
addition? That's enough. Do we have addition or amendments to the agenda?
No, there are 3 additional handouts that each of the directors have, and they'll be made part of the administrative records. And it's just to make the documents a little bit more legible. And then one of them was cut off a little bit. So the information is the same. It's just a little more legible.
Okay. All right.
There.
And let's go to public concerns. Is anyone waiting?
See no one in there other than Jack and Liz.
All right, very good. In that case, then we're going to move to item 6, action item, preliminary budget fiscal year 2026, 2027. Item A, discuss the budget for the fiscal year 2026-27 and receive staff recommendations. And B, direct detailed preparation of the draft fiscal year 2026-27 budget document for review and discussion to be conducted at the special meeting budget workshop, which is scheduled for this Wednesday, April 22nd at 6 p.m. Okay.
Sure.
Proceed with the presentation.
Yeah, if it please the board, I have a PowerPoint we'll roll through. So my goal this evening is to walk you through our problems and present to you the possible vetted solutions that we've developed. Things we'll be looking at the background, we'll be looking at the revenues, reserve ideology, operations and maintenance budget, what we have for non-negotiable contributions that are defined by resolution, and capital improvement projects. Just a little bit background, 12,777 the capacity units. So whatever rate is developed over the next couple of days, that will be the multiplier by which you have your total revenue from those rates. That being said, is we have 7,665 customers. The reason that those varies is that the people have more than one CU. 125 miles of pipeline. There's about 160 accounts per mile, which is important to know. We're predominantly rural. Yeah, it's not dense. We're rural. We're residential. We have low to no tangible growth. The growth that we do have is predominantly ADUs, and we have an age system that I'll dive into a little bit in the future here.
Can I ask a question about?
Sure.
Okay. One, Allison asked a detailed response to a question I asked, and you mentioned that we actually have a 15% increase in revenue versus what was budgeted last year.
It's an example of a number. That wasn't an actual number. That wasn't the actual number. That was just an example to get to the number that you had referenced. But so that.
Yeah. Can't make budgets on fiction. So are we going to have any growth in the accounts next year or not?
The answer is
No, but you.
the answer is it depends. Very limited growth. So you are going to have service unit growth. Historically, the district has estimated 25 capacity units per year of growth. However, with the large growth of ADUs, I would say it's probably closer to the 50 mark. However, remember that most of those ADUs, the capacity charges are about at 50% of a capacity unit. So your full capacity unit growth is going to be somewhere in the ballpark of 25 full CUs.
Yeah.
I mean, it ebbs and
That isn't close, but not exactly right.
That is correct. We still have quite a few months before we submit tax roll. The number is not going to vary drastically.
And the second question is, you also mentioned that we get money from CETUS.
Correct.
Not listed up here. So it's not a lot every year, 70,000 or something.
Yeah, it's currently approximately 54,000 a year.
Okay. This is good. Thank you.
I have a question. What was the growth that past year?
Actually, tell you exactly.
I should say if any, I guess.
There is. Well, it says it's approximately 250. I find that hard to believe, but yep. It was about 225 is according to last year's number that we used versus this one. The answer is I doubt it. But that is what it is.
Okay, what should the variance be approximately?
You mean
I
the,
mean, would you say 10% growth?
No,
no,
I think you're looking, yeah, I mean, I,
maybe 5% growth?
Okay, all right.
Now,
yeah, at one point, yeah, I think you're looking, you're you're looking at less than 2%.
that's a big year for us. Yeah, the caveat is that
It's shrinking and it's shrinking.
Well, yeah.
the caveat is it can range significantly. We have a lot of pending development projects in our jurisdiction, one of which will spike the growth for next year.
On Ventura Avenue.
That's correct. So we're probably going to see abnormal growth probably over the next fiscal year. Yay for us, but it would be abnormal.
Or perhaps another way to characterize it is sustainable growth.
Let us hope. Let us hope.
Okay. The reason I asked my question, in the April 13th presentation, was a table that showed a 41% increase in property tax revenue. And that Scott recommended 26%. So how do you get from 26 to 41? That's the question I asked Allison. He said that it's because we have a 15% growth revenue from year to year. I thought she meant that was real. She now tells me that's an example. And so that table means nothing to me that we saw on the 13th. If that wasn't
I mean, it's going to be
actual.
It's gonna be reasonably close. So what the answer was that I gave to Lowell is that the correlation in the budgeted amounts are not going to be exact and direct to the rate increase, because the amount that we use as the base at our current rate for projections this year is going to include any actual growth that was realized in the prior year. So for example, I use the example, if we saw 15% increase in our revenue, I'm already going to use a 15% as a base in my projections. Then you increase that by whatever percentage and you end up at 41% increase. So it's budgeted year over year. But like I said, you're going to have a built-in increase if you saw it, because once you reconcile, then you adjust that number upwards.
But the built-in increase in that table was 15%. The assumed increase. And that's why I'm questioning this slide. If we're assuming 15 in what was presented on the 13th, and now we're saying not, somewhere we're.
No. I mean, I think that's a reasonable estimate. Like I said, I mean, it's not an exact calculation, but it is
I know.
15% and 26 equals the 41 that you referenced. And so
$1 million. So that's a significant amount of money. That's $1.5 million.
So with, if the, what is revenue growth derived from, since it's not growth in the increases? Units. Hold on. What else drives revenue?
So revenue is derived from growth in service units, inspection and permit fees, an increase in the 1% allocation that we get from the county, interest revenue that goes directly applies to the general fund. That's pretty much it.
We do have a little bit on that later on in the presentation.
Proceed.
With the budget timeline, it's really important for us is that we try to meet the April 27th approved budget so we can get the Prop 218s out. So I don't know that Director Reed knows, but we invoice on tax rolls, which means that if there is whatever the rate that we establish, it goes onto the tax roll. The county collects it, and then the county pays us. They would pay us in January and May of the following year. But if we miss the deadline and it doesn't go on tax rolls, it's a huge redo that would adversely affect us, and that we would not be collecting it, and second, we don't become an accounts receivable in account, or we'd have to make invoices, which is something we currently don't do.
218 though.
Prop 218
is around the idea that you're charging the actual cost of what it takes to provide the service. So you have to justify the rate.
Going back to the revenue. So the way that we garner our revenue is through service charges. That's the majority of the income. Like I mentioned, it's billed on tax rolls. We do have some direct bills, some of the mobile home parks, commercial properties, and non-tax bill properties. So that would be schools would be on that. Other special districts that don't pay property tax, those people would get paid or would get invoiced separately. We have the property tax income that we mentioned. That's 1%. Now we don't get the whole 1%. It's OVSD's portion of the 1%. Interest income, it is minimal, and then other income, inspection fees, and our permit fees. That's where our revenue comes from. A couple things that we'll talk about: discretionary reserve balances, emergencies, rate comparison, just to give a perspective. This is not a justification; it is just put a perspective of what neighboring agencies are doing, and expected rehabilitation and replacements in the coming time. Somewhat of a complex chart, but I'll go through it. So this is a summary of the discretionary discretionary balances that we have contributed since 2019. What this does is it puts into perspective of what balances the district was making prior to COVID and how it's tapered off, and compared to that is also what I'm projecting. Important things on here to look at is if you took the average of these 3 years' revenues and you adjusted it for either CPI or Construction Cost Index, CII, which is the Engineering News Report, which is it's really indicative for our areas. If you took this average point from here, ran it up year over year in inflations, that's about where you'd be at. Also on this chart is the OVSD rate. So this is the rate that we have been charging our customers. We had a couple of 2.5% rate increases. We had 3 years at 0, 1 at 5, and 1 at 4. My point is the slope of this line, if we were to stay with inflations, the slope of the green line would be the same. It's not. One big concern that I have is emergencies. So exactly how much money we should have reserves, I don't know. But as a point in time, we have one. In 2023, we had the SSOs in 2023 that cost the district $5.6 million to remedy those SSOs. In today's inflation rate, that'd be $6.5 million today. So where I'm going with that is I would not be comfortable with having discretionary reserves at less than $6.5 million because we would not be able to fund another emergency. Otherwise, we'd have to go out and find money, whether it was through borrowing or debt. This chart off to the right gives you an idea of both the non-discretionary, which is often when we look at it in our budget summaries on a monthly basis, that's the red number, that's where the red chart is. gives you an idea, for a long time, we were running up just shy of 20 million. And our discretionary has been always, oftentimes just shy of 10, and we have dropped down.
Can I ask?
Sure.
With my famous questions. In the non-discretionary, some of it is for employee payroll reserves, I think, I'm like 4 million, I forget what I saw on the chart. But of the non-discretionary of that 8 or 9 million, whatever it is, how much of that is non-discretionary by law versus by board choice? In other words, if we had an emergency, could we access some of those funds just by making a resolution that allows us to use it? Or is it held by law?
I wish I had that with me. The amount that is held on behalf of the employees is held there by law. Yeah, comps, yep. The other, so we're looking at the reserve expansion reserve fund. I'm sorry, the treatment plant expansion reserve fund, the treatment plant capacity reserve fund, and the replacement reserve fund. And the third one was it's not the local, it's not the trunk.
I think it's only those three that are restricted.
You're right. It's those three that are restricted. In dollars amount, I guess going back to your question, is it reserved by law? I think it is reserved by covenant that we have going back to borrowing that came from the construction of the treatment plant, but I'd have to dive into that. But I think it boils down into the construction of the treatment plant. There was a covenant when you came down to. Oh, thanks, Liz. Yes, all right. So you had deferred compensation, that is the employee's money. The treatment plant expansion reserve and the treatment plant replacement reserve, I believe those are established by covenant when the treatment plant was originally constructed. That's my understanding. I'd have to dive into it further.
I think one of them, Dennis, you may know, one of them I think is by law. Are we not required to have some sort of reserve to meet a state statute that basically we can't run our plant to fail to some degree?
You might be right on
The
that.
public health and safety requirement that says that we have to have some sort of reserve with some proportional amount in it. And it's I think it's the treatment plant expansion reserve, I think.
I'd have to dive in to give you a specific answer.
Is there any leeway for us to access any of that in an absolute dire emergency? And the answer is maybe, some of it. Certainly not the deferred compensation amount.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this slide?
Sort of a question. Or an observation. Both. I'll make the observation in the form of a question. You can confirm it. So it would appear that since we fell just short in 2021, since 2021, following the vertical bars, as well as the green line with the identified as a OVSD rate. That is something access.
Oh, it's the right-hand axis on this side.
Access. Okay.
So this is the dollar amount of the bars,
Yes.
and the right hand is the dollar amount of the green line.
We've since and it was a near miss in 2021, but it was because there was a discrepancy. But since then, the rate and revenue has not kept pace or anywhere near CPI or
CCI.
CCI.
That's correct.
Okay, and what is that delta approximately as far as, I don't know, percentage? Percentages are always good, but
I think I'd have to go back. I think it's about 27%.
okay. That's a substantial gap.
Is it fair to say that some of that gap is because we spent some of those reserves on the new hydrogen plant?
This is saying revenue is not keeping up with
Well, I know
CPI.
revenue. I'm not worried about, I'm talking about the reserve itself, the reserve dollars.
Well,
The big drop from 22 to 23. I think that might have been our storm.
I think so.
And so some of that has been obligated to be repaid to us. That's $1,000,004. And there's another potential $1,000,009 that has not yet been repaid. So what's that, 3.3? So if you put that on top of the 2023 number and carry it forward, we're around 18 million. If we get that money back.
well, yeah, but obviously the reference from of the
First chart,
5.6 deficit caused by the 2023 SSO season, shall I call it?
right?
And the repair, subsequent repair scenario would cost 6.5 today. So
Oh, I
we
understand.
get
Yeah,
all
no, I
that back,
understand.
we're still at a net negative from it. But
Right.
more importantly, our revenue's not keeping up with inflation.
Well,
The under,
It's
under-
rising at the same
the-
rate. It's
the-
just not rising fast.
well, I think what the conversation here is really about future rates and any changes that we may make to that. So what's in the, I mean, not to call it even secondary consideration relative to, funds on hand. What we're looking at from a actual project, a deliverable from this conversation is rate increase. And that's, and if I heard somewhere to try to keep up or get it equalized, if we did it in one jump, it's 26 or 27%. And that's a little more than, I think, from a political perspective, is something that I'm real,
Well, and
or anybody else would be real happy about.
I think that's why Scott's saying that this all keys on the philosophical question of how much do you want in reserve? Some agencies, when I first came to this agency, I had a board member tell me that it was a different board. They were telling me that their particular district was afraid to have
Were they
these
in this
large
room?
balances because they were afraid the state was going to come in and take the money. They didn't want to have these kind of reserves like we did. When I first came to the board, one of the reasons we had the big reserves because we're getting ready to build that plant. We spent a whole pile of money. We prepped for it, and then we spent a pile of money on it. Then, unfortunately, we had the spill in 2023, which knocked us down again. But in other words, it still comes down to how much money do you want in reserve? Because the expense side of it, as Scott will show, there's really no question about that. We have to have an increase to offset the chemical increase and our labor costs that we added. So again, it all comes down to this capital picture of how much do you want to have in reserve, and knowing that full-blown emergency like 2023 could cost us anywhere from 0 to who knows much, but the number we have is 6 million. So that's why Scott's got that number in there, is to build up a reserve that would handle an emergency, which is also why I was asking the question, can we use some of our discretionary funds in the event we have a real emergency? Rather than, I was implying, was rather than showing a rate increase.
Did you get an answer?
What?
Did you get a satisfactory response to that query?
The answer was maybe. We could use some of it, but not the employee contribution. So potentially we have 4 or 5 million there that we could potentially use in an emergency. Whether we could or not is completely unclear. We'd have to pass resolutions as a board to make it accessible, to offset things that, as Scott said, were created back in 85 probably.
I think
But that, I mean, you've hit the point. That is the point. How do we build up that reserve? What Scott's proposing rebuilds the reserve. when it comes to political costs you've mentioned, a 30% rate increase is not going to fly.
Well, I had also asked the question, and I'll let you get to that, about, addressing any increases in an incremental way and how, just to change the gradient on that line, to increase the pitch, so to speak. So, in any case, any other questions? I knew you would convinced it.
Inevitably. There is another chunk there, and I asked a question of Don Allison beforehand, and I confess I don't understand the answer.
Which one was that?
It's about the non-negotiable contribution table. We have about $500,000 a year.
Yeah, I'll have I do have a coming slide on it.
Okay.
Okay.
Because I still don't understand the answer.
Okay.
It sounds to me like we're paying ourselves that money. Like the money's just going from one pocket to another. It's not really an expense in terms of our assets and liabilities table. This was,
Net, yes.
we borrowed $8.5 million from our reserves, and we're paying it back $500,000 a year.
From revenue. That's the key consideration. So the
So we're rebuilding reserves at $500,000 a year, every year
until
under the current plan.
2037, when the $8.5 million is paid off.
Okay.
Okay. Do you have any questions by any way, any chance, Jack?
Yeah, we self-funded the TMDL expansion at the treatment plant. What was that? 12 million?
Yes,
We-
approximately.
We paid $750,000 for a new vector. And that came directly out of the general fund because there was no reserve. We have the reserve going in now. And that's based on a 10-year payment, we hope. But we couldn't, you have to go through bond. Bond money is double, you pay double. The ratepayer pays double for that. But if you have good reserves, and which we did and do, but we've been paying a lot of money, taking a lot of money out of reserves. And we have programs where we give people the opportunity to pay their initial fees in long term, no interest. And when we get the money back, we lose money from inflation on our dollar from that. That's the total loss. But that's one of our programs to help people when they have to hook up. I think we need to take a serious look at the reserves and build them back up, because where would we be if we hadn't had that reserve money and that
Years ago.
and the two things and the 23 disaster. And it's always comfortable to have reserves because we pay as we go. That was the policy the board put out years ago. That's why the reserves were built up.
Yeah, another consideration too. We're looking at a, El Nino condition. They've been miscalling that risk, for years, but this one actually looks all lit up in the right place. That's, where's the risk? Has there been a risk study about all of this? Because when I'm sure I would have heard if the federal government was going to be sending us a check is in the mail kind of thing. So not having heard that, I you know, I don't know what the possibilities still are, but we have to function and plan based on looking at right now. And we seem to be entering into a more of a risky, or at least even be just the same level as 2023 potential. So I don't know if it's helpful information. It seems pretty apparent without running numbers that the risk factors increased.
If I had to put money on it right now, put money on losing that line on the west side of the river, right by Burnham Road.
I have a slide on that.
Can't guarantee it, but it looks to me like
Ask one more
close to a
question.
sure thing.
On this left chart, you've got the big bar on 2026, and that's labeled as reserve contributions by year. Those numbers we've actually done this year or planning this fiscal year? Or is that your forecast for what we're going to do 26, 27?
When we dive into it, I have a suite of projects. This bar represents a suite of projects that I think we can accomplish next year if there's funding for it.
So what this bar is labeled as is 2026, 2025, 2026 contributions.
Correct. 26, 27.
It's not labeled that, nor is any other bar labeled that. It's labeled 2026.
Which is the 2020.
What are the contributions we're actually making this year?
The 2025 farms.
2025 bar is what is contributions that were made to reserves. Fiscally.
25, 26. Okay, so these bottom labels aren't, they should be labeled 25, 26, 26, 27, rather than just a single year.
Yeah, I see your point. It was.
We're going to present this to the public, so it'd be nice to have these things labeled correctly so that they understand what we're talking about. Okay, that helps me understand because I couldn't figure out. I didn't think we'd put that much in this fiscal year, so that helps.
Yeah, we put.
The other thing I want to clarify is that chart is contributions to those reserves. And there's some base value in those reserves, and we're taking money out of those reserves to actually do work. And so the net of that is the gray bars on the chart on the right, correct?
No, because we also have the 26 refunding bond that is embedded on this chart that would not be in the gray bar. That would be in the red. The SRF loan, so the browns would also be in the red.
And the reds are a point in time. I mean, the right-hand chart is going to be taken from a point in time. So the closing of February or
That's right.
March.
Yeah,
These are holistic fiscal years.
it's holistic for, and this is
The end of our reserve contributions on the left bar chart says 1.5 million. That number is included in, is it in the 2025 bar on the right or in the 2026 bar on the right as being the base value for our discretionary reserve? Is that number on 2026 before or after 2025 contribution?
There's no reflection of 26, 27 in the right-hand column.
You see what I'm having trouble with. They're not labeled what they are, so it's confusing. All right.
This is for comparison purposes only. There's nothing more than that. I just want to give everyone an idea of what the neighbors are doing. Right, $64.14. The only neighboring, at least the ones I looked at real quick. The ones I looked at, the neighboring agencies was Camrosa has a lower rate than us. If you look at the slope of these lines, these are already projected rate increases that they did at Prop 218. I believe the slope of their line is runs between 10 and 12% is what they have going out to 2028. City of Ventura is more expensive than us. Camarillo Sanitary District is more expensive than us. City of Fillmore is more expensive than us. City of Santa Paula is more expensive than us, and as is CARP. CARP doesn't have anything going into the future. City of Ventura and Camarillo Sanitary District do. There's are running escalations at 15 and 16%. There's a little bit of wiggle room back and forth on the City of Ventura's that doesn't really show up in here, but it bounces around. So the neighbors are projecting 15% rate, 10 to 15% rate increases out to 2030, depending on who the neighbors are.
So all that tells me is we manage our money and our process better. Otherwise, I've got no interest in it. Everybody's got a different district, different infrastructure, different ages, different gathering system, different numbers of people are paying into it. It's interesting. It doesn't make me feel better or worse about what we're doing. Like I said at the last review meeting, it's largely irrelevant in my mind. I don't think anybody that we go to in our district of Ojai and say, oh, by the way, we're going to add a 90% increase over the next 4 years is going to look at these charts and say, oh gosh, great. It's just not going to happen. So it's an interesting point, but it's, like I say, it's largely irrelevant in what we're trying to decide.
Do you know, or even can you speculate on why or how CARP and Camarosa maintain their numbers, since we're not keeping pace with inflation. They don't appear to be either.
I don't know CARP in particular. I do know that Camrosa has an advantage that we don't have in that they sell their recycled water. And that's something that we cannot do. We're obliged to discharge our water into Ventura River, and they can generate revenue on it, right? So all they need to do is undercut whatever the going rate of irrigation water is in their district, and people will happily buy their water as recycled water. That's an advantage that they have that we don't.
And you don't know about
I don't know about CARP.
okay.
And the reality is
CARP added a lot of entire neighborhoods of sewage ejector pumps within the last like 10 or 15 years. So that's probably was a big revenue stream for them, and then also should be low maintenance because it's a newer system. So I would think they have several hundred, or at least a couple hundred homes that they added that are.
Right. Any questions, Jack?
One thing I think we ought to remember is all of our lines and our equipment is 50 years old or older. So that's going to be we're going to be spending a lot more money on rehabbing everything as we go.
Great. Thank
So
you.
we're going to need reserves for that.
so that.
Please.
Oh, you want to go back to the other sheet or?
No, this is fine. The rates are are numbers and you can compare numbers, but the context is, I would say, missing here. Do you have a general idea of the average age of the systems of our neighbors compared to ours? Do you have a comparison of the, let's say, miles of trunks and main lines per subscriber or per customer in our system versus others? I suspect our number of miles per subscriber is larger than our neighboring systems. So I would expect that our rehab and repair and relining and all of those things are going to be proportionally higher.
That seems fair. I don't know what the details of the neighbors, what their ages are.
Sure. The presentation from 2024 said that our 60-ish connections per mile is about 60% of what a lot of larger cities like City of Ventura and Camarillo have number of connections per mile.
Oxnard, I'm sure.
That was my whole point. If you have no context, why show it? This brings up a bunch of questions that you can't answer, and I don't think it's useful for our staff time. We spent researching other systems so we can compare rates.
Well, I find it comforting to know
If there is context, it can help us
Well, but there
understand why the rates are different.
And,
There isn't.
well, but you're talking about what's ultimately going to support any rate increase. And I think the more, my perspective of foundational approach has a lot more than, the more peers of support or justify any result is. So I think it's helpful, beneficial. Some more information.
But just laying the rates out doesn't help
Oh, no.
unless you understand what's behind
Yeah,
it.
exactly. Context, exactly.
This is a look forward well, there's really two charts here that we'll dive into it. So this is a construction of the trunk sewer system of OVSD. What this is showing us is 60,000, which is going to be about 60% of the pipe constructed between 1955 and 1956. Another 18% was constructed between 66 and 76. To put that into perspective, a back of the napkin calculation for if you had to replace the collection system, you're probably looking at around $240 million is the replacement value of the collection system.
$1 million a mile.
Yes. About $240 million. And where I'm going is based off the types of pipes that we have, we were able to do an analysis, because if we know the types of pipes that we have and the material that they were made from, we have a reasonable estimate of the life expectancy of this. And that's the chart that's off to the. And what this is showing that by 2026, we'll have about $500 million of predicted replacement based off of age. By 2031, there'll be another 5, somewhat of a reprieve, but by 2041, based off the type and the age, you'd be looking at an $80 million rehabilitation and rehab for the collection system. That's just the collection system. That does not include anything at the treatment plants.
You're talking about relining and pipe bursting and.
Yep. Yeah. So the way that the analysis that I ran on it was, we have prices. You can do a quick rough estimate on pipe bursting, CIPP. CIPP is going to cost you around $15.25 a linear foot diameter inch. So it's about $150 for a 10-inch pipe. It's going to be about $305 for a 20-inch pipe. We also included in that the vast majority, not all, but a lot of the 6-inch pipe that we have in today's day and age, by our current design standards, we would install it as 8-inch. We would only use 6-inch on a cul-de-sac that has 10 or less houses on it. And we have a lot of 6-inch pipe. So for that particular pipe, we looked at it for pipe bursting at was it $400 a linear foot, I think is what we used.
Yes. All in.
And that was all, in design and construction, and that would have been in 2025 dollars or 2026 current dollars. So if there's any inflation, the inflation is not baked into the cake. I can't predict the inflation. But I guess where I'm going with this whole thing is there's looming expenses that are out there. I don't think that you could do close to $80 million. It's going to take you between a decade to two to do it. You're looking at somewhere between 15 and 20 years to do that work. I mean, it's going to be disruptive to people's neighborhoods. That's just the way it's going to be. So that's what these yellow charts are here. These orange ones would be implementable construction. The idea being is you try to front run some of the stuff ahead of time. You do some in 2040, and you could run some back to 2046. And I do agree that this is wholeheartily based off of age and type of pipe. You may be able to kick the can a little bit, but it's still the order of magnitude. You're not going to take a 75-year-old pipe, maybe it lasts to 80, 83, 85. It's not going to last to 150. The failure mechanism on a lot of this vitrified clay pipe, it's not the pipe itself, it's the rubber gaskets that are at every length, and depending on who manufactured it when it was installed, the joints are every 3 to 6 feet. And that's the failure mechanism is the rubber joint.
So by replacement, you're talking about relining, bursting and relining, or just relining for larger pipe?
Yeah, lining. Yeah, you'd line larger pipes and you would pipe burst 6-inch. That's what you're looking at. If you really, 80 to 90% of your rehab work would come down to that. Bursting 6-inch pipe and relining larger diameter.
I think this is an important chart for planning for the future. It looks like what this amounts to is about 5 million a year if you do it gradually over time rather than wait until the last minute. And so the question is, how much are we working towards this problem this year? And how much are we working in our budget that's proposed? How much are we working towards it next year? Knowing that to accomplish it all in 15 years, we've got to spend 5 million a year. So anyway, that's it. Or I'm not expecting an answer right now, but it's just because as I think I see it, we're spending about $1 million in our proposed budget towards this problem next year. The one question be, why so little? Knowing that that's looming is only going to get more dire as time goes on.
2 million a year for election system and then 5.
Yes. And I think when we dive into it, I think we're looking at 2 million for this year. We've got some details to go through that I'll present for the next couple of years. But my point is starting in 2031-ish, which is 5 years away, we're looking at $5 million a year for a decade or two.
And just
So,
how that question is going to come up. How are we going to staff for that? Because we can't handle even 2 million a year right now.
That is an important question. I agree.
Jack?
don't forget that the water board is charging us 10 million for that blowout on the river in 23. We may get it down to 5 million.
Yeah.
And aren't we glad we have enough money to cover it? But what does that do to our reserve? Flattens them out. Then when something happens, if you don't have the money to fix it, you gotta get a bond issue. Well, it takes a long time to get a bond issue going, get it done.
Big money.
So you have to borrow money to cover it.
Bank money is quick money. It's expensive.
We're very lucky this thing that we have good reserves. We spend over $500,000 every board meeting. And some of those board meetings, I've looked it back over, we spent $1.2 million at one board meeting.
Following that, perhaps we just need to have fewer board meetings.
That's the obvious conclusion.
Cause and effect. Okay. Keep going.
All right. The purpose of this slide is to show the board what our operation and maintenance budgets have been the last 2 years. There was a jump from the fiscal year 24-25 to fiscal year 25-26. A significant portion of that was a pay raise for staff. What I also want to show on this is the proposed for fiscal year 26-27. We sharpened the pencils and got it down to, I think it was about 4.4% was the proposed increase for this year. It was outlined in the board packet that went out to the board, and Allison, Israel, and Liz and Bradshaw, everyone was super diligent on really trying to hone it and get it down to reasonable numbers.
And the biggest single one was the chemical.
The biggest single line item was chemical, yeah. Yep.
That was about
$500,000.
offset by other reductions.
Offset by some other reductions at the treatment plant.
Good.
Okay, we talked a little bit about non-negotiable contributions. So we have two non-negotiable contributions, meaning that these are contributions that have to be made from revenue. I guess the 2016 technically didn't have to be. If you had too much reserves, you could just pay it off. But the way it's budgeted right now, it would come from revenue. So we have the 2016 refunding. We have a $260,000 projected on that. That is down from 3 and change because our reserves in that reserve fund are likely high enough that we can absorb a reduction in the payment, because I think it's our principal and interest this year are going to be $330. Yeah, so $330, but we have money in that reserve fund, and Allison's taken a look at it, and so we've dropped that from the $330 down to the $260. We also have this SRF internal loan. It'll pop up, and we can show it when we go to do the final budget. But as Director Quillisi was saying, it was an agreement to repay, for the district to repay itself $500,000 a year over, was it a 20-year span? 20-year span, ending in 2030. 2030?
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's about,
That's not a real expense then. Moving money from the general fund into reserves.
We're taking money from revenue to put it into the general fund to basically replenish cash that was borrowed at the rate of.
It was borrowed from our reserve funds and put in the general fund or O&M or something, I don't know. And now that $500,000 a year out of revenue is going back into reserve funds.
It gets actually deposited into the cash flow instead of the reserves. That's the way that it's structured. Essentially, what it does is it saves us from having to draw from our investment account. And so we just leave the 500,000 at the county to use it for available cash.
It goes from revenue into cash reserves at the county.
We're changing the label on some of the money at the county.
That is correct. It's essentially, it remains cash once it's, as it's collected as revenue. It remains.
It does have its own separate sheet in the budget document.
Correct. It's accounted for separate.
Expenses that we have are contributions by resolution. So there's two resolutions that OVSD has passed that prescribe contributions from revenue for them. One is the equipment replacement, and it's for IT equipment. It's resolution number is 2011-06. It outlines the expected useful life of equipment, IT equipment, so computers, monitors, things of that nature. This year, it's proposing $177,000 of expenses from that.
77,000.
177,000.
77,000 because 100.
No, 100. It was 277. It's 177 from me. It's 177 from me. Because they backed out that truck. That truck's been backed out as a separate item. And then approximately $215,000 from the vehicle reserve. That was the resolution that this board had an opportunity to look at in 2015, or I'm sorry, 2025. I do want to note something on this. When I prepared the vehicle resolution, I was in error in that I failed to include sales tax. I didn't understand that the district was required to pay sales tax.
Is that the reserve for the Vector?
Yes, that was for the Vector, for all licensed equipment, all licensed vehicles. And the reason that I'm recommending 215 this year is I'm trying to get caught back up on the 7% and change that I've failed to bring into it. So by rule, I think if you look at it, it'll say $200,000 plus or minus, and I'm suggesting that we do 215.
Plus CPI or some such.
Well, I would like to see that, not a vehicle reserve, but a Vector reserve. The name of it, that's what it's for. So that somebody won't look at it, whoa, we could take money out of that to buy a vehicle. I think we.
Factor.
Or,
Earmark the four versus general vehicle.
Oh, well, I think.
I think Liz and I got it correct.
Vax is not the only.
No, these are your numbers.
I thought I had backed it. I think I had
Let me know.
277.
It's the biggest single item, for sure. So I like the fact that we have a long-term plan in each of these areas. And if we had a comparable long-term plan for the collection system and for the treatment plant, then it would be, I think, a lot easier to explain to anyone, including ourselves, why we need to have a certain amount of revenue any given year to set aside, because treatment plan and collection system are reserve funds just like those two. And we can talk about, you know, it's clearly at this point, it's a back of the napkin kind of 2 million a year for a while and 5 million a year for a while. And I recognize it's going to take a lot more come up with probably the level of detail that produced those numbers. But I think we need to do it.
So one of the things that we have this year is that zooming back to where we're at with reserves. I'm not comfortable drawing from the reserves if we had to do any CIP projects. And what Rick and I did is we ranked by priority. This is at the suggestion of the finance committee. We went through and looked at important projects. We ranked them both on the risk that they have. We looked at the likelihood of the risk event happening, and frankly, whether it's implementable or not this fiscal year. If it wasn't, then we moved it further down. So what it boils down to is we'll go through these in detail as we go through here. But we're looking at permit and construct the TICO ADA improvements. We're looking at a feasibility study for the former Mission Oak trunk line. That is the line that's on the west side of the river downstream of Baldwin. Looking at a design study for the influent pump station improvements, a design study for the wastewater treatment plant mixers, construction that would replace some CIPP for Techite pipe, some pipe bursting at Rancho Drive, possible pipe bursting at Alto Drive, the installation of a replacement grit classifier, and the purchase of a new yard truck, which is, I'll dive into that as we go. So how do we get to this, right? What information do we use? We have the CCTV from collections. We have our MMS reporting. We know when everything was installed with some of the dates. We have known issues. We also looked at our sanitary sewer. We keep track of that. It's part of our SSMP, and it's a little bit. First time is just bad luck. The second time, you should have known better when it comes to some of these. This is the rankings that we looked at. Likelihood of failure, consequences of it, hydraulic capacity and O&M. We went for the bigger stuff first if we could. Asset conditions, time criticality, and again, the constructability of it. The matrix formed from it. If we can click into it, maybe a little bit too detailed for this, but maybe it's something we could do later. We can roll into it. But we can click into it and you can see how we ranked everything.
I have a question.
Yes.
I haven't seen this term before, so. Birth-related pipe?
Tuberculated pipe. I think of barnacles, but it's a growth within the pipe of iron pipe and cast iron pipe. That's how when it corrodes, it tuberculates. So it gets these.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
The city of Ojai or Casitas replaced lots of tuberculated pipe from 1921 system, remarkably tuberculated. Now I have a term that I'm going to overuse. How much cast iron you have? And I'm not talking about in the treatment plant. I'm sure there might be some there too.
One moment. I need to open the spreadsheet. We have the exact. Wrong. 3,400 linear feet of cast iron pump sewer, 15-inch and larger. Another 800 feet of ductile iron. Oh, that's total. Sorry, that's for that's trunk and collection. So, a mile, less than a mile.
Okay.
And it's kind of just some stretches of it where there's a few segments of it in Foster Park, some of it in Creek Road, some of it in the city of Ojai, some of it upstream in the trail, but it's kind of a weird project, or it's a weird thing to tackle because it's onesie, twosie all over the place.
Sections.
Yeah.
Random sections.
Yeah, yeah.
And is it, and it has been maintained, or is it cleanable?
The way that we.
Highly tuberculated.
Yeah, none of it is, we've tackled some of the smaller diameter and the worst condition, I would say. But there are, rag buildup and things up on it. The way we handle it is we have them order the liner and then they come in and they chain flail the ID and then knock it off only once the liner's already on site so that they don't catastrophically damage it while they do that. We haven't done yet.
Line it quickly right after. you
Line it immediately after you chain flail the next day.
All right. Okay, very good. Thank you.
I think a lot of it, certainly the ductile iron was used crossing underneath the old railroad. That was a lot of it.
That was a good idea at the time.
It was. I mean, this stuff is durable. I give it that. It just corrodes.
He did it for oak trees too. It was a longer kind of it in some.
Well, so last century.
So one of the first projects that we're recommending is the Tico ADA construction. We've been working with the county. The county is expecting the district to pull a building permit by the end of June and start construction. So that would be through the ADA compliance up here at this facility.
After the fact permitting for the.
Yeah, and the after the fact permitting of everything.
This is primarily ramps and wider doorways and things like that.
Ramps, wider doorways, looking at the construction and design of the garage. Structurally, there may be some partially destructive testing requirements, opening up walls to confirm how it was built and how it was anchored. We don't know the exact details as we dive into it. My understanding is we have pictures when it was constructed, but we haven't had an opportunity to sit down with the building official and show them the pictures and see what they're willing to accept from photographs and inspection reports that we have versus what they want to see with their own two eyes.
I got distracted from it. I wanted to thank you two very much for doing that risk-rated chart. That's a huge, and you did it in good detail, I thought. And it gives us basically a 5 or 6 year plan when you really look at it. I'm sure other things will pop up. Many things.
Liz was instrumental.
Thank you for
Liz was instrumental in preparing that. Liz.
Thank you for doing that.
And I foresee that as far as a collection system and, at-risk collection system and, things that need to be done is something that we're going to be sharing with the regional water quality control folks.
I can make that available.
The big projects on the horizon that, yeah, okay. The permits must be pulled by the end of June 2026.
Yes.
That's coming up. I mean, anything submitted yet as far as,
Yes.
Yeah, we're meeting with the building very soon, so we're hoping to get a little bit of an update. Rasmussen's been running with it and liaising between the county and the district on our behalf. But they did say that the owner could pull the permits because obviously we won't have anything to award at that time. And the building department permits, they indicated that would be acceptable.
and they'll work, they understand that. I'm like,
Yes.
okay.
We're trying to make them, yeah,
We don't need drawings to.
have drawings. Drawings prepared, yes.
And the must, and the must, what's driving the must?
The county wants it closed.
That's when our
You mean, talking about from a compliance perspective?
Yes.
that's when our plan check expires. The terminology that I just saw last week.
But there is a option for an extension on, if it's made in writing.
We haven't discussed that yet.
Meeting with them and
You want-
sure to ask them.
That usually that's the case, and you usually can get a 6-month extension as long as the request is made timely before the expiration and that it is done in writing. You don't even need to give a reason. It's just that procedure. Okay.
We talked a little bit about the former Miners Oaks trunk relocation. If it's okay with everybody, I wouldn't mind just kind of reviewing it in detail so we're all on the same page. So you can see it. This is Baldwin Road, which is also Highway 150 Caltrans. Up off the very upper right corner is Miners Oaks. What used to happen and why this is constructed the way it is the trunk line used to come down, it would cross up just on the north side of Baldwin Road. It would tee in really close to this location, and then it ran down this way here. What happens now was in 2006, they designed and constructed the Miners Oak siphon. And so it was a horizontal directional drill that came all the way down off the screen down. What we end up with is this legacy 14-inch asbestos cement pipe, 15? 15 and 18-inch asbestos cement pipe that truly serves Rancho Matilaha and a few properties off of the Highway 150. What I'm proposing is a concept design. It's going to require a survey, and the idea that I'm asking myself is, based off of grade, is can a revised alignment that picks up Rancho Matilaha in these houses, can we have a revised alignment that runs down Burnham Road so that the pipe would be protected in the road itself? Also give the district the ability to service the Los Encinos neighborhood. There's about 45, I haven't counted, about 45 to 60-ish people in Los Encinos that are currently on septic that we could conceivably serve. What I'm proposing for this fiscal year is the conceptual design and survey, and a rough back of the napkin calculation is it's going to be about $150,000. I don't know if it's going to require a lift station. I don't know. There are some expensive specifics. There is a 24-inch line that runs through the Casitas potable water line that runs through this area that we'll have to get around in some ways. And also, let's not forget that it's Highway 150, which puts us in work with Caltrans.
There still is a line that goes across there at the
There is
bridge.
no there is
Nothing
It's
there.
abandoned.
but it's in the ground. There's nothing on the bridge.
No.
Right. And I think where Director Quillisi may be going is another idea, and it's something I think we should have the engineer look at is it may be cost effective if you do have to put in a lift station. Perhaps you just strap a pipe to the bridge and bring it back that way. That's another possibility.
You go east on 150.
Yeah, you kind of buck and grade for a little bit
Back into the siphon.
back into the siphon. But like I said, this is all. So here, let me show you my concern. So my concern is this existing pipe that we have right now. This is an aerial from August of 2018. There was about 180-ish feet that offset the edge of the river and where our pipe is. This is where it sits right now. We're about 25-ish feet away from our pipe. So let me go back and forth. I'm going to hold right here is our pipe. You can see the edge of the river here. Now the edge of the river is here. And you can see that this road is not moving as we scale back and forth. And just recently, in the last couple of weeks, I don't know if it was this tree or this tree. It was one of these three trees toppled, and it's now in the river. We've lost 140-ish feet from 2019 to 2024 of that riverbank.
So
Worse.
That's our next SSO.
service right now? Active for how many?
All of Rancho Matilaha,
Yeah,
sorry, school, probably 60
65,
houses.
60 to 70 houses. And so it's 60 to 70 houses. About 12 of them go into a lift station. So where I'm going with, yes, it's dire concern, but it's not, though it's large diameter, it is not a trunk line of flow because there's only 60 or 70 houses on it now. So it's, and a couple of these manholes are deeper. If there was an issue, I think we could probably isolate it and run between timing the lift station of roughly 5% of that population. We can time the lift station. We can turn it on and off ourselves. We can run trucks. So I think it's mitigatable. So it's not going to be like the 2023 SSOs where you're looking at a third of your population. We're down to 60 to 70.
That line's gonna break.
The lane's going to break. That's right.
So here's what I'm wondering about the Encinos people. Casitas Vista, the state's paying them to help divert the sewer, right?
Yeah, Trustee Lane and North Rice Road.
So most people had an option, either do it, don't, but if you do it, the state will help you. We got enough buy-in to gain approval so that we could work to do with the state.
We're working it.
It's Encino people come in and they say, you can build your line, but we're not gonna join it. So, to me, here's what I'm ultimately getting at, is this the kind of project, two things, that we should approach the state and say, look, we can do this. We've got a reason to do it, the rivers and road encroaching. But we need some help with the people in Encino to help fund that transition to sewer versus the septic. And the second thing I would suggest, possibly, is that we go to the LA Water Control Board and say, look, this river's moved this far. You're gonna find us again when this breaks, which it will. And so we want you to either take care of the riverbank or hold us harmless in the event of a spill, help us pay for this move. That, it's going to happen undoubtedly. I think, didn't you just say that, Director Quillisi?
It's gonna happen.
That's gonna leak. That's gonna.
I also have a question is, given the onslaught of the riverbed, it doesn't usually stop and go over to the other side. Miraculously, it has a tendency of persisting. In the event that, we dodge the bullet and implement some solution or some mitigation, a scheme of mitigation, we have to abate the pipe that would soon be daylighted by erosion?
I don't know. The asbestos cement pipe?
Yeah, I mean,
How do we?
even if
handle
it was ductile or even plastic, but
It's for consideration for certainly.
well, that's not going to be a special. It's more of a doable. That needs to be part of the study, because now it's incompetent riverbank, if you will. It gets daylighted and you're working down in the stream bed, which might not even be permittable. Yeah,
You may
there's going
not
to
even
be,
able to abandon it. That's right.
well, yeah, yet there's going to be some agencies saying you gotta, and there's some other agencies saying no can do, and that sounds like a existential dilemma.
Which all comes to my point. In addition to our feasibility study, which is the mechanical moving it, it seems we ought to be deeply involved with these agencies right now, showing them what's going to happen and that they need to help us figure out either how to fund it or protect the river or something. I mean, in the worst case, we just abandon that line and those people up above the 70 are just out of luck. They have to find a way to transport through trucks. Because we're not gonna risk another fine.
I think that's that's another can of worms. But yeah, this is, I think this needs to be shared with the water board.
Indeed.
As part of whatever else is going on, maybe.
Amen.
No, as soon as possible. These same communications that are, well, at least just add it to the list of communications that's going on here regarding 2023 SSO situation.
You cut off Rancho Matilaha. Those are people that keep litigators on retainer.
They can help us.
Well, yeah.
They can go to the water board with us.
Yeah. Okay. Were you going to say something, Jack?
I was just trying to call my daughter in,
Oh,
plug my laptop in, because I'm losing my power.
that usually happens to me about this time of day. Okay, so.
So at this point, we really we have no leverage over the Encino people requiring them to go to the away from septic. I was thinking we could offset some of this cost by fees and all that, but they can just say, sorry.
Well, you know, there's going to be a percentage of them that would be on board because the enhancement of property values and use and
A lot of it
You know,
is right along the
but-
road. It's
yeah,
not a
and-
big
and-
distance.
there will always be some folks, and even it could be as high as, 30 or 40% or who would say, unless it was free, and sometimes even if it is free, they're not interested for whatever reason. I don't-
In my way of thinking, this is one of the biggest risks the district now faces in terms of future spills to water.
I mean,
So,
there isn't anything
Are
that's
we
even,
slow playing this unnecessarily by only doing a feasibility study this year? Or should we actually begin construction second half?
I have no idea what it's gonna cost. That's the problem. If it requires another lift station,
Yeah,
it is.
we've got to do that
We have
first,
to, yes, I would love to be able to do that.
but we got to do that.
and who, like, I mean, what's the process for the feasibility study? We have to do a, RFP on it?
Yeah, we can do an RFP on it and we'll have to look at, getting a surveyor in and an engineer and
Okay.
it needs a survey. I've tried to do my own back of the napkin and we're splitting hairs. We are splitting hairs. It's nothing. I mean, I'm like, is it? It is right on the edge. Whether we can catch it with.
It's gotta be fast tracked. So ideally, whoever responds to RFP or similar means has the bandwidth to address it, because that's not a simple engineering concept.
Thank you again for putting this together. That graphically is worth a million words. That's the old saying, one picture's worth 1,000 words. That's
All right, moving on. Another project that we're proposing to do is the influent pump station improvements. This is somewhat of a two-pronged approach to the project. So what we have going on right now is in our influent wet well, we have these grates and slide gates. The slide gates are manually lifted. You walk out on these grates, you pull them up. And that's how you can reroute the flow in the wet well to various channels of the flow. They're aluminum, they've oxidized, they're kind of bound up tight. In of themselves, they could be replaced. But the other question is should we be using what we currently use, which is grinders? So right now we have a suite of grinders. So any trash that comes into the treatment plant gets ground up into confetti-sized trash, at which point it goes to our fine stream. That's not how everybody does business now. That's how it was done in 1997. Some places now they use what they call a rotating bar screen. And the idea of the rotating bar screen is you're picking up bigger pieces of trash as opposed to grinding it up into smaller pieces so you can pump it. You pull out the wipes and clumps. And so where I'm going is I think it would be important to see is it practical to retrofit our existing wet well to have a bar screen, a rotating bar screen? And is it cost effective? I don't know that answer. And then at the same time as they're looking at that would be the first question is then they would then also do the designs so we could get in there and remove these old grating and remove the old, the gates. It's $150,000 concept design to get in there and tell us, is this something that we should do? And the answer may be, no, you guys are married to these grinders and we move on. And that's the way it's going to be from that wet well. It may be the opposite where there's technology out there that Liz and I don't know about that other people are using, where you can retrofit an existing influent pump station with these in essence, rotating trash racks.
What's the lifetime of that? What's the lifetime of a grind?
On grinders, about every 5 years, I think we're going through grinders.
Yeah, they have to do the replacement. Yeah.
Yeah,
around
about
5
every 3 to 5 years, we buy grinders again. They wear out. And it's just a consumption item.
they do.
We did it a year ago. So
Potentially.
3 to 4 years from now.
Yeah, okay.
Years.
But the grates and the gates are kind of bound up pretty tight right now. So they're not necessarily functionable. They're
And they're replaceable?
it's going to it'll require some work. You'll have to get in there. They'll have to chisel off some concrete. You'll have to pull the old guides out and set some new guides in mortar. It's going to require a bypass. There's a lot of legwork to do.
What, and just out of curiosity, what's the design longevity from 97? How long is this system supposed to?
I don't know. I mean, my back, I mean, the concrete's probably 50 years. I mean, I think you're looking at, anything that's corrosive, whether it's aluminum or you're looking at, 25 to 30 years. The concrete, it seems to do pretty well down there. So you're probably looking at 50 years on the concrete. If it's any ductile iron, you're 30 years. Anything equipment, it's in the 5 to 20 year range, depending on where it is. If it's mechanical equipment and super corrosive, that's your ballpark life expectancy. But so what I'm proposing on this one is, again, it's $150,000 for a design. Tell us what we need to do and if we should even think about it.
And what, how long would you anticipate take to go to RFP and, the process of identifying a design?
6 to 9 months, maybe faster. I think it depends on how the economy does and people are hungry or not hungry and what they have backlog. I don't know. I think it's go down to, I mean, that's certainly something we could pencil into the proposal process to timeline if it's a.
Already getting the sense that you're all going to be busy.
So the default is you just keep putting new grinders in.
The default, you keep,
You can't operate that way.
you can, it's just,
Have to replace those grates.
we're eventually gonna have to replace the grates that are bound up. And so what I don't want to do is replace the grates today and then we find out like, hey, why didn't you guys put in a rotating bar screen and get rid of these grinders that we're burning through?
To me, this is the kind of project that would rank low compared to what we just looked at with that dump off roof. But this particular project wasn't on the matrix.
No,
Treatment plant project, which weren't matrix-sized.
the gate replacement and the lining improvements, because there's a liner in that whole influent pump station because it's in such a corrosive environment, and the grading, so the gates and the grading and the liner is all to be done soon. So I think the idea was, we know we need to do a design for that. While we're doing that design, let's have the engineers look and see if we're doing it the right way, or if they would suggest implementing a bar screen instead. And then you're gonna have a big swing in your total cost, depending on that.
I get it.
I think there was a safety aspect to the grading.
Yeah, the grading and the gates, because, when we go down into the pump station, flow is in the wet well like it should be, but these guys are in there having to pull gates and they've got, sewage up to their knees and they're pulling manual gates and things like that. It's just not, in a big wet weather.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, so we got to get them some operators at least.
All right.
Why it's good to be in the engineering department.
All right, another one before we get into some construction stuff. Another question is what should we be doing going forward? So we currently use 5 very similar mixers to mix the anoxic and the aerobic zone down at the treatment plant. There's a new technology, and these are mixers that last from 97. So it's the original, I understand it's the original shafts, original blades. They have new transmissions in them every so often that have been rebuilt, new motors that have been rebuilt. But again, they're over 30 years old now, right? And so there's a technology that other places are now using. They're calling it a big bubble mixer, or sometimes they call it a plate bubble mixer. And I don't know the exact details of it, and it's somewhat counterintuitive, but yet everyone's using it in that you have a fiberglass plate, you put an air bubble underneath it, and somehow when that air bubble bursts, in essence, it stirs everything over, it causes a displacement, and you stir everything up. Because the bubble is a giant bubble and it has a relatively small surface area, the extra oxygen that's in the air doesn't adversely affect the aerobic and the anaerobic zones. The nice thing of those mixers is that you don't have any, you have less material that is corrosive in a super corrosive environment.
Fewer moving parts.
And a lot fewer moving parts. That's right. And it could be an energy savings on some. I do know the city of Ventura has used it, and they're reporting that the operators really like it. They're getting good results from. Anyhow, it's another conceptual design of about $150,000, and I think it's, and maybe we take a look at it and say it's not for us. We can't retrofit our system to this, but maybe we can. I don't know. Moving on to some constructions. This is the Techite Pipe Rehabilitation Project. This is another one that I actually think is imperative that we tackle. So Techite pipe it's a thin-walled, very light, brittle pipe. The Techite pipe that we own was installed by the Army Corps of Engineers down along the Ojai Valley. They did it as following the 1969 floods that wiped out the previous district's pipe that was there. So there's two things that are kind of a few things that are a little sketchy with Techite. First of all, it's thin-walled. It is not robust. It's also light, which means that if the water flow grabs a hold of it, it has the ability. It's more of a sail and not an anchor. We have about 1,800.
You can't just line these.
You can line it, and that's what we looked at. So Liz and I looked at it, and that's what we're proposing. We're proposing a CIP lining. We probably would extend it up and down a little bit past a manhole. So in essence, you don't have we wouldn't overlap any seam that we have into more substantive pipe. It's going to require a bypass because it's one of our trunk lines. It's large diameter Techite. It's 15 and 18 inch. Total project cost is $560,000, and this is one that I think actually ranks quite high because it is in a place that was a problem in 69 floods. And
This is upstream of the 23 flood, though.
Really downstream.
yeah, right downstream.
Downstream.
You can see where it was. For Kate's, the second segment, you can see where right there, yeah. That 90-degree into the.
Even right here.
Okay.
So it's
So a
immediately.
portion of this was replaced, but you would through it.
Yeah.
You go.
The Army put this in because it was cheaper.
Yeah, I don't, or they had it, or who knows.
The reason that's in there was that's the only pipe they could get in the 69 flood. They couldn't get clay.
Okay, but lining would make it heavier,
Lining would make it heavier. Yep.
stiffer.
And stiffer.
What's the final diameter?
Starts out 15 and 18 inch, and you would lose under an inch of ID.
Go to 14, 17. And we know our system will be okay with that. We're not gonna have to go back and remove blockades. Okay.
This is a couple of photographs of the existing. You can see where it's out of round at this point. There's a few sections on the edge that it's
It's a bulge and it's cracking.
bulged and it's cracking. That's right.
Pipe joint. It's catastrophically when it.
So we know we have a crack in that line right now.
Yes.
But the cracks,
And there's one that runs right down here.
there's not any indication that the crack projects down to below the water line.
There is a circumferential crack that I believe.
So we may be losing, maybe leaking. We don't know.
Not pressurized,
Well,
yeah, but
yeah, but it's also not raining, so ostensibly that means ground is more receptive
Have we
to
corrected the
fluid
ground down the
or
hill?
liquid than, yeah. And once again, what size is that?
Is it
15 and 18 inch.
As painful it is, I suggest we go look, check the ground downhill from that and just see what we've got in the ground. Been in a situation like this with an oil spill, it gets very nasty if they find out that you didn't check. When you knew you had a crack.
And even if you did check, they still come back and say, you knew or you should have known before it happened.
Well, it just means we gotta start on this immediately. Got a known leak in a main line
Yeah.
right next to a creek. Should have been doing this a month ago, so to speak. I would think this is, you're saying we can't do it till the rainy season is over, so is that like tomorrow?
No, we're in design now, in-house.
You're in design now, okay, good. All right, is there an urgency associated with that?
Our goal is to do it for the rainy season.
Yeah, it's constructive. A pipe bursting project that we looked at, this is a location where we've had two SSOs on Rancho. So this is where Rancho comes down at the 5-point intersection at Highway 33. It then goes underneath 33 and heads on down Elroy. We've had two SSOs in this location. It is a 6-inch vitrified clay pipe that has high groundwater in it. We have some pictures. It's got root intrusion. This is a candidate for pipe bursting. It's a $573,000-ish project is what we're estimating right now. Hotspot. So this is one of those types of projects that if it's successful, you did a pipe bursting, put in a welded HDPE upsize it from 6-inch to 8-inch. There's a few things for us. One is it's going to correct it and know an issue. Two, it's going to reduce extra work that we're currently doing because we're going in and doing root removal. We're doing hotspot dressing. And so, conceivably, this would be the type of CIP project where you actually lessen your future workload.
So the pipe burst project, we certain there's no adjacent lines that we're gonna damage by putting a bigger hole underground than that's there now?
It's too much bigger. It goes from a 6-inch ID clay to a 7-inch ID HDPE. And we
Got the OD of the original pipe that presses out.
right into the formation. We do a utility study. This will be designed by a firm outside of the district, by an outside engineer, and they'll do a utility study. We also
My brother-in-law's home and we ended up breaking concrete walls for basements and stuff, so.
they excavate at utility crossings.
Okay,
Watch it. Yeah, sure it's okay.
screw up, good.
Pipe burst to 8, then you're looking at allowing yourself a 12-inch diameter hole. Basically, and it'll settle again.
They kind of say it pushes into the formation and they excavate at the crossings. And we haven't had an issue with it. We've done a couple miles of pipe bursting already.
8-inch.
Is it really that much cheaper than just digging it up?
Depends on your length of your property line and how many utility crossings you have. So that's one of the things that you evaluate. And in a place like this, I think it's cheaper because we don't have a lot of lateral connections along this line. But if we were to say pipe burst Miners Oaks, where you've got 50-foot property lines and you got a gas line and a water line and a sewer line you're digging up, against that trenching is cheap.
There's
You've
almost
looked at
nothing
that, you
there.
feel this is the best way to do it.
In this case, yeah, we only have a couple.
Okay.
Parcels to the right of that line are, if they're drained, they're draining over to Montana Circle and back into the trunk that's along.
And the rest drain out to Montana Circle, like you said. We might open cut in Caltrans right away to flip traffic, I'm guessing, but it'll be part of the design.
Practically nothing on the left side. 2 or 3
That
main.
yard, that utility yard.
Yeah.
That's Caltrans utility yard.
Another one.
Yeah.
Because
So
one
as you
down
go-
the water.
Yeah, it's their storage, yeah.
As you go further west, there's a church,
Point is there's
barber shop.
maybe two laterals on the
Yeah,
left
Yeah.
on that
Yeah.
1,500 feet.
All right.
All right, another project that we're proposing is, or at least for consideration is another pipe bursting project. It's on Alto Drive. It's a 6-inch line. Location of some hot spots, some cleaning, route history, and and this one does have more connections on it, but it is also longer.
And your risk probability score took a dive there from the 80s to the 60s.
60s. Looking inside that pipe. Grit glassifier. This is down at the treatment plant. This is a piece of equipment that separates grit from our treatment drain so that we don't pump it through the system and so the grit doesn't settle out. And it also then takes the grit and it squeezes out the water, throws the grit into a dumpster. That way you're not hauling off slurry grit. Equipment lasts about 15 years. This is the second piece of this is the second grit glassifier that the treatment has had since 1997, and we're looking to put in a third one. I think there's design in here for also some repiping.
Yeah, they didn't do the adjacent piping when they replaced the classifier like 15 years ago. It's goes where, I mean, it fluent grit, systems, abrasive and.
Total project cost, and this is a relatively simple project. There's gonna be a little bit of design. Majority of it is just pipe fitting and buying this equipment and installing it. There's not a whole lot of work for necessarily for Liz and I to do, or any of the engineers to do in designing.
It's something you can't have break either.
Not have it. We can, but it's just we're going to be pumping grit down into where we don't want it to be clearing out other parts of our system. The last item I'm proposing for your consideration is a yard truck. I'm going to dive into it a little bit because I don't know that everyone has seen this. So this is something that we're renting right now. We've given it a shot to see if it tries, and there's a story as how it's going to go. So the way that before we had this rental truck and trailer is we would run a dump truck. The dump truck would park underneath it. So this is where coming out of the solids handling. So it presses the solids out, which is the bacteria. It comes up here on a conveyor, gets dropped down into this hopper, and we drop it down into the pickup truck. With our new treatment plant process to try to get down to very low nitrogen levels, we need to waste between 6.5 and 8 hours a day, which is substantially more than what we needed to waste years and years and years, last year and prior. Right? What that means is we needed younger biology. The younger biology we're seeing, it doesn't give us that problem that we had with the phthalate and the D-night filters. But the way you get younger biology is you waste more. You're squeezing out more of that biology, which means you're generating more
Younger bugs
and you're generating more biosolids. You're just culling the herd quicker. That's all you're doing. What that required is about once an hour, someone would have to run over to the dump truck, grab the dump truck, fire it up, drive it over to the other side of the yard, dump out the dump truck, bring the dump truck back, turn it on again, and the solids would continue to haul out. At the end of the day, they'd go out with a tractor, they'd spread out the pile of solids, hoping it would air out a little bit. And then the subsequent day, a trailer would show up empty. They would then run out with a loader. They'd scoop everything that had been laid out and spread out with a tractor. They'd scoop it up into the trailer, and then the hauler would drive it off, and they'd do it again. It was driving me a little bit nuts that we were touching everything twice, because you could have just had it right into the trailer. And they were spending a fair amount of time, as they should, cleaning up the loader, cleaning up the tractor, and cleaning up the dump truck, because if you let this material sit on it, it's super corrosive, and it's gonna go to pot quickly. So what we are trying out is we rented one of these yard trucks. So it is a licensed truck. I don't know that you'd ever haul anything down the freeway with it. But the intent of this truck is to be able to drive fully loaded trailers around the treatment plant. This is what other agencies do. Bradshaw and I went out to Thousand Oaks, and this is how they're operating out there. This facility, like Santa Barbara, they're slightly different. Theirs is entirely inside on a graded pad. They use an electric yard truck. Same concept, but it's all indoors and protected, and it's dead level because it's in an indoor facility. But the intent is to not handle things 2 and 3 times if you don't need to. If you can drop it into the trailer and drive it away, let's do it. So what we have going on right now is using the rental truck. Is we put a truck underneath here. They do have to bump it about 4 or 5 times because you need to kind of spread out the load in the middle of the trailer. You can't just have one load in the middle.
It's like a 40-foot
It is a 40-foot.
container with no top.
That's right. It's a
How does it discharge? How do you dump it?
So the hauler comes and grabs the entire trailer. So we will take it over. We will lower the trailer down on its legs, grab an empty one, bring it in. He will then come with an empty trailer. He leaves the empty trailer for us and hooks up to the full trailer and drives off with the full trailer.
They empty it.
It's like a conveyor on the bottom, see little.
Okay, yeah, I got it. Because I was going to, that's not a bottom dump, but yeah, effectively it is.
And so where I'm going is about a year or so ago, we had a problem where the belt filter press gave up the ghost, and we did an emergency repair. And I think you're looking at about a 5-year life expectancy of that belt filter press with the emergency repair. We spent a fair amount of money on it. We got it up and running, but it is a piece of equipment that was installed in 1996, working in a caustic environment. I don't know how long it's going to last. The other thing that we're seeing is with our increased wasting, we're looking at somewhere between 6.5 and 8 hours of wasting a day. If you had a modern facility that used something other than a belt filter press, whether it was a centrifugal press or a screw press, the capability, it's operatable remotely at this point from the flip of an iPad. And so where I'm going is if you had the capabilities of putting the solids somewhere, and this is 4 or 5 years down the road, you would then have the ability to turn on the press. As you drive into work, it would press, you get to work, you can do it, and we could shave off a couple hours of operational time. Purchase price is about $100,000 for one of these yard trucks. The other thing
It's just the tractor.
that's just the tractor. You'd still be renting that. We were trying it out right now, see how we like it. If going in the future, if you were to ask me what I would envision, I'd envision probably a yard truck, probably remodeling this so that they don't have to bump it every 4 hours ish. So it could spread out the load automatically. Maybe you'd even go so far as to have 2 parallel to each other, so it could fill one, then it would slide over to the other. There's some stuff but that's years down the road. 5 years down the road.
And the tractor is diesel powered?
This one is.
We just bought a new diesel truck to get in ahead of the
Yeah.
revised diesel rate.
I don't know. I don't know if it's diesel or gas. There's electric. I looked at electric, and they are 225 to 2 or more, 225,000.
Subsidies?
I looked into it. I've asked to see if the South Coast AQMD does, and I've asked the manufacturers of the electric to look into that to see if we can get a subsidy. Being right at the edge, they haven't been able to find anything.
That's incentivizing.
I tried. This is an idea that we're working with right now. These are some future projects that I think are important, but frankly, we can't do it this year. Downtown Ojai, on Ojai Avenue is ACP line, 1,100 feet of the asbestos cement pipe. It's going to require coordination with the city of Ojai because it's right down their main section. There's a section we're going to have to excavate, Liz.
Caltrans.
And it's Caltrans too. That's right. But that's something that we can't get it done this year. This would be something that we could work on in a year in the future. But this is the last of our AC line that we have, other than the AC line that we talked about, is over by Baldwin on the western side of the river. That would take care of all the AC line that the district owns. This AC line, see that it's falling. That's exactly right. Again, I think it's important, but I don't think it's anything we can tackle this year between having to deal with Caltrans and the city. It's going to require 6 to 9 months of coordination. I'm sure of it.
So asbestos line that's falling, where's that asbestos going?
Downstream.
The treatment plant.
Is it passing through our plant or are we picking it up? If we're picking it up, where are we dumping it?
I don't know. It has the capability of going to a couple locations, whether it absorbs onto the solids and goes out that way, or whether or not it settles out in the oxidation ditches.
So we've got a known toxin leaving our sewer system somewhere, and we don't know where it's going. We don't know how much is coming in, and we don't know where it's going.
There are water districts that are serving rural drinking water. Passes through AC pipe.
It's not very smart.
That's a lot less corrosive.
I think that's a problem.
Another big project that I don't know that we're going to be able to tackle this year, well, I know that we're not, is what we call Restaurant Row. So it is the 8-inch VCP line that runs from Baldwin, runs down the Highway 33, and it ends over here with a crossing underneath the.
Should be in the project.
Yeah, so this will turn, this section right here will be red because that is ductile iron.
What?
Ductile iron. It's a ductile iron pipe. Ductile iron is similar to cast iron. Ductile iron, I'm sorry, yeah. But this is right here on this 90 is a ductile iron that runs through here. So this is there's some sags in this line. This
is in the
traffic. It kind of comes in and out of both the sidewalk and the traffic. It meanders through there. But yes, it runs basically down kind of the bike path, the fog line, sometimes into the sidewalk.
What kind of a depth?
Oh, parts of it are pretty shallow. Like near McDonald's, we're only probably 3 feet of cover, but that's the most shallow point.
I think there's a couple of considerations that we've looked at. It's going to be surveyed, but one question we're asking ourselves is, would you just go right down the existing alignment? Would you just kind of go off to the side a little bit, or would you try to go and extend a line up the bike path and then bring all of the connections over through horizontal directional drilling or through open trenching across the 33? I mean, it'd be all of it's going to be tough work.
Many encroachments.
So this is something that again, it's just nothing I don't think we're going to tackle this year.
Yeah, I remember
Grass
hearing
field.
that,
Leeds Drive, small bursting project. This is old. This is a big project, and it may be important. It's downstream of the winery, so it's down on Old Creek Road. So it'd be downstream of the winery and upstream of the Girl Scout camp. there's a combination of some techite pipe in there. I think there's some vitrified clay pipe in there. It's got some fractures in it. I've seen with my own eyes that we have I&Iing in through there. This is the same section that occasionally there's localized flooding when San Antonio Creek starts to back up certainly in the early parts of the rain season when there's a lot of vegetation and debris in there. It'll spill over, come across the top of this. I think this is a project that would be ripe for a CIPP project.
Little typo in there. The first two segments are tech guided, sums to about 300 feet. The other 2,200 feet are the clay.
An example.
Any exposure from the creek?
Are we in danger of a washout? I think he's at.
It's.
Using my words very.
I mean, I wouldn't, I mean, it has been armored. I've walked this area. This area has been armored by somebody, certainly up in this area. But I have to admit, last time I was up there, it was after everything got washed clean, and there was some vitrified clay pipe that was just laying around. I'm like, there's also some old school, that steel pipe that they use a riveted steel pipe. There's a piece of riveted steel pipe in the.
That's the century before.
That's right. So there's some riveted steel pipe that's just washed up in there. So it's a museum piece. So
Well, it might have been mining up there.
it could have been, I don't know. But again, this is something I don't think we're going to be able to tackle this year.
Okay, but it's been looked at from the perspective of risk of exposure
Yes.
to the creek. Okay, all right.
And the capabilities. Miramonte, a mid-size project. We have some existing manholes. This one is peculiar in that there is a nice redwood that is taking a liking to our manhole. And
Yeah.
it's a really nice tree, and I think we're gonna have to relent. Put in some different.
It's running parallel to the line that we saw a few charts back. Goes right down the.
Top of that project area would be somewhere between that 6-inch and 8-inch.
Country
Restaurant
Drive or something like that.
That's the start of that restaurant row project area. And then that redwood is right under that manhole with the slight change in direction.
And what do you anticipate the arborist is going to say? Or what would you like the arborist to say?
We are going to chip out our manhole and burst through it and redirect the flow that comes in from the east side.
Mhm.
Add a manhole in the homeowners. That's actually kind of a big driveway area, so we'll add a manhole there and hopefully burst through it. That's the intent, is to burst through it and not have a pit near there will be pits under the tree line, but not immediately adjacent to the trunk.
So you're really not going to be disturbing the.
We'll have an arborist report for sure, and we'll have an arborist on site as we dig, but we're hoping to locate our excavations as far away from the tree as possible. Or possibly not under the drip line.
Yeah, so a lot to study.
And then we'll just let that structure go to the tree.
Wood roots, I don't think spread the way oak roots do.
Another Barber Street. Looking at constructing some manholes that right now we have a bunch of cleanouts that are installed on the top side of them. The problem with the cleanouts is that you can't launch from the cleanout for any of our cleaning equipment. It's just too small. In today's day and age, we would probably prefer to have manholes there, and that way we clean it from front to back and back. Not have to do things backwards.
Providing elevation in
Yeah.
this neighborhood is.
Climbing up. So, I'm gonna open up, so what I'm proposing this year, at least asking for consideration, is talked about the 260,000 for the refunding, the $500,000 for the SRF loan, 177 for the IT equipment, 215 for the vehicle replacement reserve, and the following budgets: the Chico ADA project, design for feasibility design, former trunk, design for the pump station improvements, the design for the mixer replacement, Eckite pipe rehab, Rancho Drive pipe bursting, Alto Drive, the grit classifier, and the yard truck. Anything else I don't think we can tackle this year. And I would start with saying is I understand that there's a political decision and a political calculation that needs to be made here. And so with that calculation, what we have done is, let me see, can you hold the control button down or can I? So what I have set up here is if there's certain, thank you. If there's certain dollar amounts, if there's certain percentages, this is, it's not perfectly exact. There may be a few errors in the calculation.
Share this real quick.
Sure.
Can see it. Okay.
Jeez. Sure.
So I think we have these things pretty well organized from most important to least important in things that we can calculate or in things that we can conquer and actually do this year. Go with this. I know I get it that it may be a little hard to see, but as an example, so I think we're looking at the revised numbers that would take us all the way down through the yard truck is a 28.5% increase from where we are right now. Take you to $82.50. But it's a $70, what's palpable. With $70 in here, and it will automatically calculate, it says, well, at $70, you'll take care of all your non-negotiables, your contributions by resolutions. It'll take care of your designs, but it's going to leave the Techite pipe unconstructed. It would leave the Rancho Drive, the Alto Drive, the grid classifier, and the new.
So I really like what you've done. I was hoping you would do something like this. So when you go to the top, you understand it, you plug in a proposed rate, and then it calculates how much budget you can actually
Where the
fund.
red, green line moves.
So what I need to know or would like to know is zero rate increase. How much capital does that give you to do anything?
Oh, that's a $0. Hold on.
64.
Thank
You still have 6414.
6414. That would give you,
It gets you down to the study.
you get, you would be able to do the Chico project, the ADU project, but you would not be able to do any of the studies.
Okay, okay. So that assumes no rate increase. And by that, I'm accepting this is over and above the 4%, 0.3 to cover the expense increase. I'm okay with that 4%. So this is over and above the 4. So
That's if our rate holds at 64.14. You've covered O and M already.
is it in the top lines?
We have revenues and then O and M.
Oh, okay. All right. So it's still, all right. So what's a 4% increase then? 4.3%. What does that work out to on the dollars per month?
$66.90. That would give you the Eco ADA that we talked about, plus the feasibility for the minor Zokes design and the influent pump station, but you would be shy of the wastewater treatment plant mixer.
Well, that's kind of, worst case increase would be just 4.3, which matches basically what we did last year. But that doesn't get us very far into
It's just a couple of
the whole
studies.
series of pictures that you showed with leaks and tree roots and water spraying in. And so that all was very eye-opening to me. So here's what I was thinking, because I don't like rate increases, as probably everybody knows. So what I was hoping is today we would have had a discussion, closed session discussion about other issues around fines, but along the FEMA lines, as I understand it, 1.4 has been obligated, right? And typically when it's obligated, it does get paid, just not necessarily today or tomorrow or next month.
Liz and I have learned some new information. So obligated small funds, once they're obligated, typically get paid.
And by small, we mean,
Requests less than $1 million. But our outstanding request is greater than $1 million, and we're finding that I think we're looking at a 400, they're about a $400,000 pullback, if you want to call it that, from their obligated funds on that
how
one.
would they pull 400,000 back?
They check it and then they check it again and then they send it to and then they obligate it FEMA. So FEMA does a check and then they do a second art project assessment and then they kick it to Cal OES. So when they kick it to Cal OES, they've obligated it. Because it's a large project, then Cal OES does a deep dive and they start, asking for additional information, documentation, et cetera, whatever they need. And we had, and at that point they can obligate funds. And they even say, if we pay you, we might come back later and ask for some of those funds back if we do an audit and decide that we overpaid you.
So where are we in that process with the original 1.4 that FEMA obligated?
Yeah, so it's a little bit confusing because
It's a
we have our Creek Road project, which is still pending obligation, so it is not yet obligated. That one has already gotten a haircut because of some funds that they don't think qualify. Our trail project went through FEMA with those funds included, and there's, at least a 50-50 chance that then we obligate those funds from trail. So it's kind of weird because one caught it in FEMA and the other one's questioning it in Cal OES, and we don't know how.
The same project.
Two different projects.
Same reason.
Same reason.
Okay, so maybe you could just summarize for me.
Yeah.
What are we likely to get from the 1.4?
We're awaiting 3.4 total, and I think 3 million should get,
3 million we.
minus. Yeah.
We're anticipating that would be given before the end of the fiscal year.
Not really. So
Next fiscal year.
we've spoken with auditors and I've talked to other people. They always say that it takes about 3 to 5 years to fund a large project. And we submitted 2.5 years ago. So we're just about to enter a window of where funding might be possible.
Over the next 2 years.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Sometime in the next 6 months to 2.5 years, we should get the funds. Based on.
That's just for the only one I was asking about was the 1.4. The 1.9, as I understand, is a separate filing, but goes through the same process.
Right.
And that FEMA has not obligated at all yet.
Correct.
That probably will be trimmed down, or is a haircut, as you say.
I
Okay.
don't think so. That one already took a haircut and I don't see any other funds that I think should be,
Unless the state sees something. FEMA won't, but the state might, right?
No, that I don't think so because that one already took a little haircut.
So here's what I'm ultimately getting at. If I were a risk-taking person and I said, you get the raise or the increased rate for the expenses, that's unavoidable, near as I can tell. And if we get, say, half of our FEMA back money back, then the next fiscal year, how far down, if you were to add 1.4 million that we're showing as a revenue stream, how many projects would that get us covered? How many additional projects?
1.4 million?
Yeah.
That would get you down to the tech pipe rehab, or get you the design study for the wastewater treatment plant mixers. the Techite pipe rehab and Rancho Drive pipe bursting. It would not get you Alto. It would not get you the grit classifier or the yard truck.
And depending on when you got those funds, you really wouldn't be able to exercise them in next fiscal year. It'd get pushed to the following fiscal year based on a 9 month timeline for a lot of those.
For cash flow purposes. Or
No,
for,
I mean, for
Make up.
planning purposes, because you really can't expend anything that you don't have, so.
Yeah, we couldn't go
Unless
out
you
to
got them
bond.
early in the year, you'd be looking at the projects the next fiscal year anyway.
And so, assuming we did get that and could spend it in the next fiscal year, what roughly is that equivalent to in terms of a rate increase? I mean, you just, in other words, put a number in there that gets us roughly down to that cutoff list you just.
20%.
So 20% rate increase gets us roughly to the same number if we were to get the FEMA money, half of the FEMA money within the next fiscal year. And we could spend it within that.
Half of part of the FEMA money.
So that's roughly equivalent to a 20% rate increase, inclusive of the 4 point whatever. So it's roughly a 15% increase on just the capitals, the revenue available for capital projects. All right. So I'm just trying to establish limits as to how much I feel comfortable with, because what I've learned tonight, I really appreciate you two doing this, or whoever worked on it, is we're in a world of hurt. We've got lines with water spraying into them. We've got line with known cracks. We've got asbestos going into our system, which we have no idea how far we're spreading that all over the countryside. And, you know, it just, all of that is shocking to me, to be honest, that we're that bad off. And so I came in here saying there's no way in hell I would propose or vote for a rate increase, but seeing those projects, I honestly don't see how we avoid that. The only way we avoid it is if FEMA comes through for us. We don't have any idea of what it really looks like. Might be a year, might be 2 years, might be 6 months. We might get half of it, we might get 70% of it, we don't know. And then we've got this other problem that we're worried about too, so. You guys can talk and ask questions. I'm stunned and processing, I guess is the way to look at it.
You know, you can, it's like anything. You can be, you're, you know, from a sanitary district perspective, you can be doing fine and very well capitalized, but you're one SSO away from literally disaster. So, and we encountered that.
Well, I will say this, I spent some time looking at the LA district's charter, their rules that they operate by. And one example is they just completed a fine for the LA water district that had a spill of 8 million gallons, and they charged them 6 million. So, you know, this implies that whatever we're going to get fined at isn't going to be the first number out of the box. So, but they do fine. And, you know, and looking at it, it seems like it's almost random behavior as to how they assign fines. They have a statutory limit of what they can do and not do. Within that range, they seem to be. One of the statutes is they cannot impose civil fines for natural disasters unless there was some negligence involved with it. It complicated the spill or contributed to the spill. So that's just by statute.
The fact that most of the system, the collection system, was built between 60 and 70 years ago.
That's on you. If it's a leak.
Is it negligent?
It's on you. If it's 70 years ago and it spills because of a natural disaster, then no fine is possible by statute. But if you contributed to that, you know, if there was something
Not replacing the 70-year-old system.
You know, in our case, let's just say if you have a road that's 100 feet from a creek, buried line, been there for some number of years, and the creek washes out 100 feet, takes that out, there's nothing you could have done about that. And so you're not liable to civil fines. Now, attorneys will have a very good impression or opinion about what's going to go on or not going on, but I was encouraged by reading that. So I'm not nearly as worried about it as I was, but in any event, I still think we end up, having to discuss a rate increase, and I think it's going to be a minimum of 15%.
Okay, that's a point of departure.
Yeah.
Jim?
I'm really impressed with the amount of effort and thought that has gone into this budget. It's more than a budget. It's sort of a master plan for the next several years. I'm inclined to give Scott, he's recommended. I think what they proposed here is going to be very hard to accomplish. I'm very optimistic in their assessment of how much they're going to get done in the next year. It's really an ambitious program, but I support it 100%.
Has to be ambitious.
I'm inclined to Scott what he recommended, and then wait for the year, see how much they get done. If we're not able to get it all done, budget increase the following year. It's going to stay pretty constant because we'll have to get caught up on it. Whereas if they get it all done, that'll be great. We'll be making real progress. So I'm willing to gamble and go for it.
Hey, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm with Jim on that. It's sound, it's handwriting on the wall, and it's been depicted pretty clearly in the presentation. So I would go for what God has asked for.
Any other comment?
The number that does everything you want, 28, does that include the 4.3 that we need just?
What's the dollar amount?
$82.42 a month.
Which includes the 4% for the state.
Jay?
I think so.
It does.
I think so.
You're within 0.25% of that number either way, so.
See, I'm generally directionally in favor of the rate increase. There's things I think that are going to mitigate the need for it, one of which is not taking any money out of our contingency fund for rate increase offsets, which is, I think right now about 986,000. There's some probability that by the second half of the year, we'll have some FEMA money. The second half of the fiscal year, I should say, not the second half of 2027, but and the third thing is something that Randy may have mentioned, that I would like to see a forecast of actual expenditures. This year, we're spending well below our capital budget. As near as I can tell, almost $1 million. With 3 months left to go in the fiscal year. And the second part of that is what we've not accounted for in this budget is the likelihood that we're going to carry $500,000 or more across the year, just as we've done for the past several years, which would again offset the need for a rate increase. So that's why I'm not exactly thrilled about going the full 26%, just because I think there's perhaps $1 million or more that we're in and not going to have as a rate increase because of those factors. But if there's a way that we can spend it, if we actually have the engineering capability, if we have the equipment, if we have the contractors, we can actually do this work next year, then I'm okay with that. I just don't believe it based on this year's performance. But that doesn't mean you're going to not increase staff or do something else to in the budget. Now, how you're going to spend it is what I want to know. And as a final point, which is kind of separate, Dennis, I'm very worried about that asbestos. And if we know we've got asbestos going into our system and we're spreading it who knows where. We don't know where it's going. We don't know how much is coming. We need to, I think, understand as a district, what's the potential liability for that?
Wondering if that's part of our monthlies and quarterlies that we need to look. We don't have a treatment plant representative here.
We're picking it up in a
But I
test somewhere.
suspect that we're required to test for it, but
Right? The reason I'm saying it in part, my wife's dad was a concrete expert. And he spent a lot of time studying concrete lines for things like asbestos and sloughing and all that. It can lead to millions and millions in lawsuits. So I just think somehow we should examine that in some way just to see what, because that might be a project is equivalent to a spill into the creek.
So they're going to be the first, where inquiry is going to be whether they test for it. Right. And then if so, obviously, we'd like to know what the results are for some reasonable period of time. And if not, then not testing, then the question is, how soon and what's that going to cost? And what, how long until we can get some results? You have anything, Jack?
Yeah. Yeah, the ratepayer can pay it at a rate, or he can pay it in interest on a bond issue.
Instead of paying,
Isn't it-
you can.
And the thing about this is, you're talking about all these projects have to be done. And now, what, there's not gonna be any money going back into the reserve, which we said when we use the reserve, we would, when we got the money to do it, we build the reserve up. So if you couldn't get all the projects done in 1 year, but you can put them in the reserve. And the next year, you can do it. You got the money in the reserve, or you can take it out of the general fund. We gotta get caught up. That's the trouble. We haven't done much work outside of the treatment plant this year, the last 3 years. Not much outside construction, only where we had to, like down on the in the view there, where we had a line that Tech-eyed Pike. But there you go. If you got something really bad, you're so much of our lines are in areas where they could spill into the creek or the river. We're looking at fine and the board and the water agency looks at a fine per gallon, which is outrageous, but they do. You gotta get, in my opinion is, we gotta get as much as we can and get started on this, because it only gets more expensive. What you don't do this budget, it's gonna cost you at least 3% more than the next budget. And so on and so on and so on.
Yeah, for projected long, for decades, actually. So what the percentage, once again, equates to about $20?
So a 28.5% equates to,
64 to 82
yeah, exactly,
dollars.
$18.
Change.
Okay, all right.
$18.28,
$18 a month.
60 cents a day.
Right, so I remembered couple years ago, we were doing budget and I complained about rate increase and how it affected families. One of the board members mentioned if they can't afford to pay it, they shouldn't live here. I don't ever want to hear anybody say that again. Didn't like it at the time, but you know, we have to remember that everybody's struggling right now. This money goes directly to families, you know, that are now paying incredibly high gas prices, increased property taxes, increased sewer fees and all that. So the only point I'm trying to make is we really need to do our best to, you know, make sure that we're keeping these the level that we can actually use in a given year. If we're going to increase the budget and then not spend the money and just roll it over like we do every year, I'm not in favor of that. And I know it's a small percentage of the total, but you know, 3 or 4 or 5% might mean something to somebody. $3 or $4 a month might mean somebody. I don't know. Anyway, so again, I would vote for, you know, I'd be willing to go along with a minimum of 15. And show me we're
Plus-
going to spend
Plus the 4.3.
No, the 15 includes the 4.3. So if you can show me how we're actually physically going to spend the money in the next fiscal year, in addition to just have it in our coffers, then I would. So on that sense, I'd almost rather wait to vote on something until we know what that looks like.
Well, okay, I see two, what I characterize as weaknesses in what you're saying. One is you have some predication on FEMA doing the right thing by us. And I don't think, I'm not a betting man, okay? I think that's not a reliable notion, okay? For computation of our, and then number two, which is what Jack brought up, is we have to recapitalize some reserves, which that's not going to come from anything but an affirmative action as far as revenues. So that to me, that's
The
two.
first point, I didn't
defects in-
predicate mine on FEMA. I was just using that to explore
Okay, well,
ranges. Because as I said, I'm okay with the increase, the roughly $4 million he's got listed there, if he can show he can spend it. He can actually spend it.
well, but once again, what about the recapitalization?
This budget leaves the current capital reserves constant.
Well, they're depressed. They may be constant, but they're constantly depressed.
They're at a level that I find acceptable. $5 million to me is acceptable.
Okay, well.
Now, others may not agree, but that I do. So
Once again, one SSO away from disaster. Okay, now that you really would be scraping the literal bottom of the
well,
barrel.
we'd have to go into our discretionary, non-discretionary reserves.
Okay,
It
yeah,
creates a problem, I understand.
okay, I don't see that as quite as viable as an alternative as perhaps you do, but okay. Having said that, we heard from Jack. Does anybody else want any other comments? I have to ask.
I'm stunned at the numbers, and I don't see any escape from them. As sad as that sounds.
No, that's called realism. Last time I checked. Okay, Allison. What is any comments?
No, I mean, I think the point is that there are some projects that we can't currently fund. I think we need to be super aware about the responsibility we have to build the reserves, maintain them at minimum. But these are historic lows for the district as far as reserves are concerned. And I think that should we have to fund another disaster of any magnitude, even close to the prior one, we'd be having a cash problem, no doubt. So I think it's definitely something to consider. I don't know how viable it is to legal standpoint to leverage all of the reserves we have. So we have to be aware of that as well. We would love to eliminate, a rate increase of any large increment. There is a feasibility to that if it really is unrealistic. So, I mean, it is what it is, but I think that it's necessary that we start to hedge responsibly on building up our reserves and really being prepared for an emergency.
And that is the notion of prudence. Because if you're counting on mitigation that may be either difficult to implement or questionable regarding legal underpinnings, then we wouldn't be in the avoidance of a rate increase, we wouldn't be addressing the risks to the financial well-being of the district. So, okay. Anything else, Jack?
Well, just remember, you took $750,000 out for one item this year in the budget, and it wasn't budgeted in the budget, so it came out of the general fund. And that was the reserve. And that's why the reserve needs to stay high.
Very true. Okay. At this point, then, I guess we've discussed this, the preliminary budget for the fiscal year 2026 to 2027. I'm going to suggest we move to item number 7, which is board member and general manager comment.
Before we do that,
Have we given staff enough direction at this point?
We need direction.
I think not.
Well, what do I have any?
what I would like to see is proposing rate increase that nets us roughly $4 million to spend in various categories. You listed them. We have no plan of when or how that's actually going to be spent. So I would like to see that before I vote on a final rate increase.
Okay, well,
That's my-
that's direction. See, I mean, I'm looking at item B then, I guess, which says direct detailed preparation of the draft fiscal year 2026-27 budget document for review and discussion to be conducted at the following special meeting budget workshop on Wednesday, April 22. So basically, we're looking at, is that sufficient direction?
So as proposed, a 28.5-ish rate increase, a timeline in which the project expenditures will occur in next fiscal year to demonstrate that they can exhaust the funds in the fiscal year, correct?
Yep. Each of these projects that we saw had a engineering design, final design, construction, and something else. I can't remember
Total cost.
what it is.
Closing, yeah.
Closing, okay. Yeah, if we could understand what those will be, and I'm sure you have an idea of it at least.
Feasibility of execution of
Yes.
all deliverables.
Of all of the dollars that are being requested. Yeah.
That's a big plate and it's full of stuff.
Well, some of it's easy.
You guys put that together in time?
Keeping in mind that
Deadline, the county deadline for being on the
We
tax.
have to know
As long as we adopt our budget by the 27th, we'll be fine. So
Monday.
we'll
Yeah.
prepare a preliminary budget like you're used to seeing with the rate increase and all of the numbers, revenue, projects, we'll do all the reserve breakdowns like you're used to. We'll do a supplemental document that all of the projects and then the timeline for execution of those projects will occur next fiscal year. Sound good?
The key thing is the Prop 218 notices.
Oh, I understand that.
You know.
No, we're stuck. Otherwise, we got to bill it ourselves, which gets really.
Well, it's not the billing, it's the collecting.
Yeah, well, that might too. We probably have some.
Billing's easy.
Send Scott out with a hammer.
each one of these projects had 4 lines that added up to the total cost. There were 2 small ones for the engineering and final design, a big one for the construction, and a relatively small one for closeout.
Kind of dependent on, yeah.
Let's just speculate that the answer is only the engineering design and final design can actually be done this year.
Well, some of them, that's what they've said in the.
Correct. Yeah, some of them.
All that's been there is the design.
That was quite a ways into the list.
It was about.
There were some pretty good sized numbers in there.
It's easy
And,
enough.
and it's reasonable to say, if you spend that big third chunk this year, do we need the money this year to spend that? If you need it at the beginning of next year, because all you got was the 2 studies done, or the 2 design steps done this fiscal year, then then you start.
Next April, we'll have a conversation again.
And you start talking about, well, I need $4 million to do the third big chunks of these programs.
Not there yet.
But I don't have it.
There yet. You gotta-
And that's why I would like to see for these kind of projects, which I think Liz and Scott have put together a pretty good, you can derive from that a 2 or 3 year plan. Because they've ranked all those projects in a way that makes sense and they've got a good idea of rough costs anyway. And so all we're focusing on now is this fiscal year, but the reality is you just said those projects carry into fiscal year 27, 28.
The funding has to be there before you need it.
Well,
MS Project will allow you to do that kind of thing and then just lay dollars in to the steps. Done that myself.
so that, that's the whole thing when you get, I think we're getting down, I mean, in a sense, we've kind of coasted the last few years, since that I've been here. We had the nitrogen plant that we had to work on.
We coasted, built the plant.
But, when we come in and she shows us all these pictures with lines blowing water everywhere and cracks and all that, that stuff's been there for more than a week. And so the question is, how long has that been there? We've never been told it, or we've never looked for it. Why, in other words, why wasn't this
Frying
stuff on
bigger
the budget
fish.
last year or the year before? And that's what I was stunned by tonight. I didn't expect to see things in that bad a condition.
A lot of them were on our CIP, but I think we didn't have a good way of presenting that to the board.
Picture really worked well.
Okay, so. do we
In your
need to-
risk category.
We have
I
enough
know
direction.
it's
We don't
needed.
need to vote on anything at this point.
You don't need to vote on anything. You just.
Yeah.
Direction.
Okay, well, all right. So having said that, then now we can go to member and general manager comment. If there's anything left to say.
Yeah, what else can we think of? I don't know.
Off topic
Uh-oh.
and very short. Our youngest granddaughter, who is now turning 16, has set another indoor rowing world record
Wow.
for her age group. She set 7 in the 12-year-old group. She now has her 8th in the 16-year-old group.
So how do you do indoor rowing?
On a rowing machine.
What's on
That's
a
what they
machine?
have to do when you can't be out on the water.
That's what I was wondering how you.
And
do
there's a
that.
whole different set of records.
If I did.
Congratulations.
I would be setting a personal rowing record.
If you did any.
That's very cool.
For Casitas? She wrote for Casitas?
No, she rows for St. Paul's School in Concord, New Hampshire.
She didn't have to contend with altitude, did she? Good.
No, just the lake being frozen over.
A little thicker.
Anything else?
Thank you again for the work, all of you. Allison, thank you for answering my questions and
Right, in that case,
stuff.
then I'm
See you
going,
next time.
I'm going to adjourn this special meeting at 8:39 PM. Thank you.